Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 9:01. And I'm going to confirm that we have all member of councils present, with two of them on Zoom. We also have the CAO, the Deputy Clerk, Director of Development Services, Environmental Sustainability, and other members of staff are with us. We advised and asked for input on the public input on the agenda through the township email on the website. Today's meeting is being live streamed and recorded on the Township of Muskoka Lakes website and YouTube channel. By participating in the open public meeting today, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded and posted online. I think most of us know that we have a supplementary agenda. In this case, it's a removal of item C7.C.1. And so we will not be redoing that. And I ask committee if there are any pecuniary interests in the case before us. Seeing none, thank you very much. We will move on to the first item, and this is a public delegation. And this, I believe it's Mr. Trimble is up, and he's the director of Brandy Lake Association. Welcome, Mr. Trimble. You have 5 minutes? 5 minutes. You have 5 minutes. Welcome.
When McKinsey used to, it was clear, memorable, and compelling. And it was 3.
Volume, please.
Thanks very much for the opportunity this morning. The Brandy Lake Association would like to talk about land use impacts in the rural lands on the streams in our watershed. Next slide, please. For those who don't know, Brandy Lake is sort of at the left end of this this drawing. This is out of our lake plan, which is now in with the township in the official plan. And our watershed is about 40 times the size of the lake. The lake is about 1 square kilometer, and the watershed goes almost all the way to the northwest corner of Bracebridge, and it's 40 square kilometers roughly. Next slide. We have a little over 100 lots, and usually the association is somewhere around 75% active members on the association, give or take. Next slide. So the main purpose for being here is to talk about the watershed for Brandy Lake. This is Brandy Creek, and probably 80 to 90% of the water flowing into and through Brandy Lake comes from this one source. And a huge proportion of Brandy Creek is comprised of riparian wetlands, but there's quite a bit of rural land use. We have 4 or 5 active pits and quarries in the watershed as well. And the important issue with our association is that the watershed is the lake, and everything that happens upstream in the watershed affects the water quality, the hydrology, and a lot of the sort of biodiversity related issues in the lake. And our lake may be a better example than many because of the size of the watershed relative to the size of the lake. But in a lot of other ways, it's very typical. You know, you have a lot of small lakes in the township with a lot of rural lands in the upstream part of the watershed. Next slide. Another thing about the lake, and this is getting to the heart of our matter today. There are a lot of rural designated lands immediately abutting EP1 creek corridor, wetland and stream corridor. And we started getting calls from several members and several non-members last year about siltation in the creek from land use activities upstream in the rural areas. And so, and when you look at there are many areas, I'm sure you all know, in the township where this same sort of circumstance exists. You've got rural zone lands immediately abutting some type of EP1 lands. And in our case, it's almost always the riparian wetland and stream. Next slide. And so the issue we're having is that every time there's a rain event, we're getting calls about basically chocolate milk colored water in the creek. We have siltation, erosion from the land going into the stream from just general day-to-day land use activities upstream in the watershed. So this is just landowners just kind of going about their day-to-day business on their rural zoned properties. But we've had one or two sort of extreme instances where this occurred at least 8 or 9 times last year. A fairly heavy suspended silt load getting into the stream. The left picture, by the way, is an upstream sort of more normal looking shot of Brandy Creek. The water is black. You can see way down into the wetland. The water clarity is relatively high, and you can't see into the water that's being impacted by this at all. It's just really thick, dark brown water. Next slide, please. So through last year, we had a number of really good interactions with bylaw enforcement, talking about the issue and the jurisdiction that bylaw has in instances like this. They attended the site, and we also had a number of good interactions with the Ministry of Natural Resources and the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks. The latter of which sent an abatement officer to the site to talk to the landowner. And what we wanted to talk about today is the site alteration bylaw. The bylaw
Mr. Kimball,
itself.
you are at your 5 minutes. I'm willing to give you a little bit more. So you might want to move to your conclusion, and then we can come back into these details.
Okay.
If
Yep.
committee
The
likes.
site alteration bylaw has a number of good provisions in it. Next slide. And go to the next slide, please. The challenge is that normal everyday activity, moving dirt, clearing and grubbing vegetation is completely exempt from the bylaw. So there is no onus on a property owner to install any protections or setbacks or anything between the rural land use and the sensitive EP1. In our case, it's the wetland and the stream. Next slide. So the Brandy Lake Association would like to request that TML provide additional protection for EP1 streams and wetlands from siltation and erosion caused by land use activities on adjacent rural lands. Basically, in other words, we would like you to consider directing staff to explore ways to add protections through one of your instruments. Could be the site alteration bylaw, but you might know of others as well. And that's all. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Committee, very interesting topic, and certainly key to one of the basic foundations of our township and this committee and council. Councilor Zavis, questions?
Thank you. Through to you, sir. I wonder if you could explain what specifically created the siltation in those pictures. I guess what I'm finding, I'm wondering, what are those very specific activities as opposed to the general nature of people who own property up above who are sending down, the result of whatever they're doing? What are those things that you would want a bylaw to pay more attention to?
Yeah, unfortunately, it is often very mundane day-to-day activities that don't require approvals otherwise. So you have a pasture in rural zone land, and somebody is basically clearing vegetation that has grown into and filled in the pasture over years, and they are clearing it out, taking truckloads of stumpage and brush. They're not necessarily removing a lot of material, but they are scraping the soil on their property, and it's going right. They're doing this right up against the edge of the EP1 zone with no protection at all, so that when you get these sort of bigger summer storms that we're now experiencing routinely, you can get silt plumes running from exposed soil right into the creek. And it can be a very routine type of activity, but that's the kind of thing that we're witnessing upstream.
Councillor Burry.
Thank you, and through you, thank you, Kevin. Excellent. It sounds to me that we need a buffer between the EP1 and the rural. And you're an expert, so how big a buffer would we need on the rural lands to be able to filter some of the silt so it's not getting into the EP space?
Yeah, I believe the site alteration bylaw has a 15-meter buffer between rural and EP1 lands, or sorry, not rural, in waterfront zoned lands. You'd have to check that, but a 15 meter in a lower gradient area that can be vegetated would be adequate. The problem with buffers is you get all different circumstances, and so having something that allows bylaw enforcement the latitude to look at site-specific circumstances, you might find that you can have flexibility for protection in areas where you don't have or don't need a big buffer, but are able to have silt fencing or sediment erosion control measures put in place and maintained. It might alleviate the need for a full-on buffer. But if you don't have the ability to sort of exercise that latitude and have people on site a lot, then you have to have a standard buffer. So a good starting point is something like 15 meters.
Mayor Kelly.
Thank you, and through you, and great presentation. But I want to go back to one section that you had up there. I think there was a definition of the exemption that related to, I think, agricultural activity is the language that was used. Is that a lift right from our?
Mhm.
So it's a question perhaps more for staff than you, but what defines agricultural activity? Is that defined by the zoning of the property? Is it defined by the fact that maybe it's a working farm, or by the fact that I own a chicken? What creates the exemption? I'm curious to know if it's more than just zoning, if it requires some sort of level of dedication to agriculture as a means of making a living, or what does that mean? I don't know what that means.
Mr. Trimble, you want to try that, or should I just go to staff and see?
I can give a soft answer and then maybe
Good answer.
ask your people. The way we've interpreted all of the discussions we had is that a lot of just general land use activity in the rural zone can be classed as just normal agricultural practice. And I think that's the actual phrase in the exemption. And that is what is limiting bylaw enforcement from following up on the other clauses in the bylaw. So
Mr. Sharp or Ms. Crowder? Anybody else going to give it a thought on what, how do we define agricultural uses? Oh, Rachel. All right. Okay, sorry. Ms. Miners.
Thank you, Chair. And yeah, thank you, Kevin, for the presentation. I think when it comes to agricultural uses, there would probably be like a variety of things that we would have to consider what that means. I think it's not necessarily just, zoning and activities, but I'm sure there's other provincial legislation that might come into play on what agricultural uses mean. So I think, if we are considering any additional buffer zones or anything like that, we would have to just make sure that it doesn't overstep what provincial legislation allows for agricultural uses and owners of those properties.
Councillor Nishikawa?
Thank you. I think I'm confused about the zoning on rural properties. Not all have agricultural connections. And so it feels, I'm just not sure where we're going. If we're only dealing with those that are deemed agricultural, like true, Brooklyn Farms up there sort of thing, or are we just talking about rural properties? Because I will say that my experience is that it's not about agriculture. It's about, just using myself. We do all sorts of stuff on our property and we don't seem to notice who it's going to affect. I'm just saying that. But there's water involved. But we're not breaking rules. So I just don't know if we're just using.
Mr. Trimble?
Thank you for the comment. I guess the one point that the BLA would like to get across is that our understanding is that exemption for normal use of the normal agricultural activities on a rural property is the exemption that was used to limit the jurisdiction of the application of the bylaw in our case. So regardless of whether it's actually an and we don't actually know a lot about what's going on these properties, but we were, told that's the exemption either way. So if not for that exemption being applied to this kind of sort of general use of a rural property, we would have potential for some more protection.
Mayor Kelly.
Thank you. Just as a follow-up to my first question, the reason I was asking that was because before we get into exploring buffer zones and rezoning and all of that stuff, maybe it's just as simple as redefining what agricultural activity is in a meaningful but sort of tightly defined way, so that if somebody just has a country retreat and a single chicken, it's not good enough for them to strip the land of all of the of all of the natural growth.
Define it based more on the activity than the zoning. Ms. Crowder.
Thank you, Chair. I just thought maybe I would add some information here as part of the comprehensive zoning bylaw update that's currently going on right now. There's a new mapping layer that's been provided by the district that is an integrated watershed management layer, and it highlights a number of wetland features that aren't currently or hadn't been captured in our mapping beforehand. And I think this group knows that we come across properties often where there's a wetland or a stream or something that isn't actually zoned DP1, and we have to deal with that on a site-specific basis. With this new mapping, we have a tool available that shows a lot of these features, and as part of the comprehensive zoning bylaw update, staff are discussing and contemplating the steps to do a township-wide update to capture those streams and wetlands that are now available via mapping. It's a large undertaking, and we don't have too much information right now, but we do have updated information of these features. And if the township does decide to go through the process of rezoning those to EP1, I think it would also just provide a lot of context to this conversation.
Ms. Crowd, just for my understanding, is when we get a major, I guess we would call it a stream or a river like this, are the banks of the river all zoned environmental protection?
Through you, Chair. Usually when we get a site-specific application, there will be, and we as staff do a site visit and notice that there is a natural heritage feature like that, we'll request an EIS. And as part of that EIS, an environmental consultant will go to site, will evaluate the feature, and will typically recommend a setback from that feature and the area to be rezoned. So I think if we were to undergo a larger scale situation, we would probably want to get environmental consultants involved as to what that setback really should be.
But what I was trying to get at is there any zoning along major? I mean, the pictures of that creek it's not a little sort of ditch running through a field with some bulrushes beside it. This looks like a fairly major creek.
Mm-hmm.
And is there a EP zone running along the whole length of that creek?
We'd have to, through you, we'd have to look at that specific creek. I've seen it where some are not zoned environmental protection at all. I've seen it where they are. It's very sporadic, and that was based on our previous mapping. However, we now have updated mapping with new technologies that will hopefully capture more of these situations.
Okay.
Sorry,
Dr. Huff?
thank you, Chair. So I just wanted to also circle back to what Ms. Miners was mentioning. I think about the real concern as, you know, what type of activities fall under agricultural versus not, and where do we lie in terms of recognizing that in our site alteration bylaw. So the Farming and Foodland Protection Act provincial regulation does specifically prohibit municipalities from passing bylaws that limit the agricultural normal farm practices on lands in Ontario across the board. So, you know, I don't know if that's the history of where that specific provision comes from, but we certainly would need to, if committee wanted to go down that road, we would need to investigate and get some legal opinion on what the implication would be for us to introduce some additional regulations about those types of practices on farming properties. What is a farm? What is not a farm under that regulation? And notwithstanding how we define it in our zoning bylaw, we'd have to be consistent with the provincial regulation.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards.
Yes, through the chair, you had a zoning map on there and some is in purple. It's in RUM3. Is this one of the properties that you think could be in question on that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, excuse me, our understanding is the RUM3 is extractive land use. So that would be a licensed quarry, which has or pit, which has its own set of rules and setbacks and things like that. And one final comment I would like to make, if I could, is that the activities that are putting the creek at risk are not just agricultural activities in the rural lands. So the exemption being used to restrict the use of the bylaw is for agricultural, but the activities that are putting the creek at risk are not necessarily agricultural at all. And I think that's an important point in the discussions that we would like to follow.
Mr. Sharp.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, committee. I just wanted to make a further comment with respect to Ms. Crowder's comments. As we know, the zoning bylaw update is ongoing, and as part of that consideration, as Ms. Crowder indicated, will be given to the EP1 zone. I just wanted to note that currently there is no setback requirement from an EP1 zone itself, meaning that you could build buildings and structures right up to the zone or abutting the zone. Now, there is some consideration with respect to the mapping about the incorporation of a buffer, but certainly a setback from that EP1 zone is something that staff and the consultant are considering as part of the update. Thank you.
That said, though, if it's not an EP1 running along the river, it wouldn't apply.
Through you, Chair. That is correct. And I think we've got some mapping recently from the district. It's not perfect. There are some, false positives associated with the mapping, meaning that there are some areas identified as wetlands that really are not wetlands, but it is an added tool that we have in our toolbox, and that mapping could be reviewed and implemented through zoning. Thank you.
All right, committee, any other questions? Councillor Edwards.
Yeah, I know with some agricultural farmland, when they have cattle and there's a smaller creek than this, they have to put a fence up. Is there anything that we could do to stop activity so far from the creeks?
Ms. Miners?
Through the chair. Again, I think we would have to do like a good review with provincial legislation to see if we could work with them on putting something similar like that in there. Again, we would just need to make sure that it's not going above and beyond what the province sets out for any of those kinds of rules.
Committee, this is clearly an environmental issue. As I said at the beginning, protection of the environment is something that's very important to us all. Do I get a sense that we would like to ask staff to look into this and come back with some thoughts and recommendations? Councillor Mazin?
Thank you, and through you. Are we having a further conversation on this later in the agenda, or are we?
No, this is it.
We're having the discussion right now?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Am I correct in that? Is-
To you.
Yeah, no, it's not.
I think we did put it on later.
Did we have it on later? I think we should conclude it now. So general sense, is that something we would like staff to do? Everybody?
To do a resolution.
So we would like some wording. Who would you like guidance on wording from that from?
Colleagues.
All right, if you could. So we'll just take a couple of minutes of breathing time.
Oh, or we could do the resolution later in the agenda.
I beg your pardon? Oh, sorry, I thought you were finished. Councillor Mazza.
Sorry, I confused myself. I had it in
All
my
right.
head that we were, that's why I was asking.
Oh, I see, yeah.
I
think-
don't really have a comment beyond. I think that it would be interesting to hear what the resolution would. It sounds like staff needs time. So that's all. Thank you.
Yeah, I hadn't, sorry, my apologies. I hadn't realized that we'd brought it up later on in new business. So, all right, so why don't we will move on to the next item. Thank you, Mr. Trimble. We'll move on to the next item and when we get to new business, we will give staff some time. That'll give them some time to create the resolution and we will deal with it then. Everybody over with that? Okay, good. So the next item is an official plan amendment application, which I have not seen those. And Ms. Crowder, you have the floor, and this is OPA 58 ZBA 20/24 590379 Ontario Inc., part of Muskoka Cottages Resort.
Thank you, Chair Bosenworth. The first applications to be heard are concurrent official plan amendment application and zoning bylaw amendment applications, OPA 58 and ZBA 2024 in the name of 590379 Ontario Inc., more commonly referred to as the Heart of Muskoka Cottage Resort. The subject lands are known municipally as 1294 Windermere Road. These lands front onto 3 Mile Lake. Next slide, please. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted zoning sketch on page 43 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the zoning bylaw amendment application is to recognize 2 as-built housekeeping units, referred to as the West Housekeeping Unit and East Housekeeping Unit, and attached as-built sun decks. Per the application, prior to as-built development, the property contained 8 housekeeping units, 1 staff quarters building, 1 office, 2 storage sheds, and 2 docks. Next slide, please. The exemptions for this application are as shown on the screen. This table can be found on pages 22 and 23 of the agenda package. In addition to the above, staff have noted that additional relief is required from section 4.2.3 of Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 2014-14 to recognize as-built development of the west and east housekeeping units and attached as-built sun decks on an undersized lot. Next slide, please. An official plan amendment application has also been submitted to amend the township's 2023 official plan. The as-built housekeeping units do not conform with section F3.4.2, being that all buildings and structures, with the exception of shoreline structures, open decks and patios, trails, fire pits, and minor accessory structures, are required to be set back a minimum of 65.5 feet from the high water mark. This table can be found on page 22 of the agenda package. The west and east housekeeping units are currently set back 29.5 feet and 33 feet respectively from the high water mark of 3 Mile Lake. Next slide, please. Notice of this public meeting under the Planning Act was circulated 28 days in advance of this meeting. Comments were received from Nick Snyder, the township's chief building official, stating no objection to the application, but noting that the buildings identified and hatched on the submitted site plan as new structure have been constructed without the benefit of a building permit. Should approval be granted, building permits will be required to be submitted, issued, inspected, and certificates of occupancy granted prior to occupancy and operation of these buildings. Comments were received from Tim Sopko, Manager of Operational Services, stating no objection to the applications. Comments were received from Douglas Holland, the Township's Fire Prevention Officer, stating no concerns with the applications, but stating that the calculated fire response time is 16 minutes and 41 seconds based on the fire department's average shoot time in the last 36 months and a travel distance of 8 kilometers from the fire station. The Fire Smart Homeowners Manual should be consulted to understand how treatments to the property influence wildfire spread. Comments were received from Emily Ramler, planner for the District Municipality of Muskoka, stating that district staff are unable to recommend approval of the applications, citing concerns related to the deficient setbacks, related water quality concerns, lack of a net improvement over the existing situation, and the lack of sufficient area this setback provides for a suitable vegetative buffer. Lastly, comments were received from Christine Condi, president of the 3 Mile Lake Association, on behalf of the association. The letter states that the association does not support any of the requested exemptions, citing concerns related to the water quality of 3 Mile Lake, the recreational carrying capacity of 3 Mile Lake being exceeded, construction of the buildings and structures without issuance of building permits on an unpurchased OSRA, and the extensive use of sand and lawn along the shoreline. The association offers their support in renaturalizing the buffer. I would be happy to read any of these submissions in full at the request of committee. Next slide, please. Staff are not currently in a position to put forth a recommendation for the applications at this time. Prior to staff returning to Planning Committee with a recommendation, the following items are requested. That the submitted survey be revised to the satisfaction of the township to confirm that the lot area of the subject lands and the area of the subject lands that is zoned waterfront commercial resort, WC1, be confirmed, and that the revised survey be stamped and signed by an OLS, Ontario Land Surveyor, and submitted with the surveyor's real property report. That the submitted zoning sketch be revised to the satisfaction of the township to include all existing buildings and structures on the subject lands, as well as the intended conversion of building number 11, as labeled in Table 4 of this report, from staff quarters to a housekeeping unit. That floor plans prepared by a qualified professional be submitted to the satisfaction of the township with gross floor area calculations for each building on the subject lands. That a satisfactory scoped slope stability assessment relative to the as-built west and east housekeeping units and attached sun decks be prepared by a qualified geotechnical engineer and submitted to the satisfaction of the township, including a review of the foundations relative to the angle of repose to the top of the slope and sediment loading erosion towards 3 Mile Lake. That it be confirmed to the satisfaction of the township that effluent flow is below 5,000 liters per day, or that a hydrogeological assessment be prepared by a qualified engineer and submitted to the satisfaction of the township, and that a satisfactory scoped environmental impact study be prepared by a qualified environmental professional and submitted to the satisfaction of the township, which evaluates potential impacts to fish and fish habitat relative to the as-built west and east housekeeping units, including any consideration and recommendations of the aforementioned scoped slope stability assessment. Next slide, please. Staff's request for these noted items should not be understood as preliminary support for the applications, but rather the required information for staff to complete a fulsome, proper analysis of the proposal to put forward a recommendation to committee. It is my understanding that the applicant's agent is here today and wishes to speak to some proposed changes to the applications. These changes have not been contemplated in the staff report, but would be analyzed in a subsequent staff report should committee choose not to make a decision today. I have no further comments at this time, but I'm happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If the applicant agents are clearly not here. Oh, are they?
Got her camera on.
No, she's not here in person.
I'm here.
Yes.
I'm here.
All right, can you bring her in on the camera? There we are. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Can you see and hear me?
We can see and we can hear you. Please go ahead. I think you know the rules. 5 minutes, name and address.
Certainly. Marie Poirier Planning and Associates, 44 King William Street, Huntsville, Ontario. I appreciate the opportunity of being here this morning. I understand that I might be limited to 5 minutes, although I thought with a statutory public meeting, we might be permitted a little more time. I have to tell you, Mr. Chair, that we've spent 2.5 years on this project and have undertaken at least 5 studies. So to try and whip through that in 5 minutes. But we have edited our presentation and I will do my very best and ask for your indulgence. Thank you. So as Emily has pointed out, this is an application for a proposal to recognize 2 buildings on the subject of the reduced set. Or so slide, please, Emily. We take a look at the property when we were advised that there was an order to comply. And we noted that there was a survey completed in 1984. And it showed a number of structures, including a structure in the shoreline yard that one of these constructed buildings did replace. The deck that's associated with that particular structure is now further encroaching into the assembly.
Ms. Poirier, you're breaking up a little bit. I don't know whether it's your microphone or your internet, but see if
Can you hear me now clearer?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so this slide shows the building that was in existence prior to the 1984 survey that was undertaken and represents the general location that one of the new structures is located upon. The second structure that is the subject of this application, as you saw from photos from Emily, is almost a twin structure to this one. It is on the original shore road allowance and an application has been made and approved to purchase the OSRA. Next slide, please, Emily. These are some photos that demonstrate the shoreline vegetation. A shoreline revegetation plan was previously implemented within the last 2 years. The sandy beach existed prior to 1984 and prior to our client's purchase of the property in 2013. And the photo on your right demonstrate the newly constructed buildings, which are not operational and not being used at this particular time. They are in keeping architecturally and character-wise with the tourism character of the shorelines along 3 Mile Lake and other lakes within Muskoka Lakes. Next slide, please, Emily. We were asked by staff over the past couple of years to prepare several reports to assist them with their consideration of this application. We prepared a revegetation plan by an Ontario, and we have had discussions with the Ministry of Environment, and the owner of the property is actually working with the Ministry of the Environment and a private engineer to ensure that the septic system is compatible and can sustain the use of the 2 buildings. We were asked to prepare an assessment of stormwater management and sloping by a professional engineer. Dan Duke was retained and that report was submitted, and it was determined that there was no impacts to the slope or to stormwater management by the existence of these buildings. Next. Slide, please, Emily.
You're breaking up again.
I wasn't speaking, sir. Maybe that's why.
All right.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. So both buildings were constructed, and we can confirm through the reports that we had prepared at the request of staff that there are no engineering, environmental character, or visual impacts caused by the existence of these particular structures. Next slide, please, Emily. So we did do a revegetation plan, and I have it showing here on the screen. This plan has been prepared, as I said, by a professional Ontario landscape architect and a member of that professional association, and has been implemented using all native species. Next slide, please. Em. And here I have photos of the established vegetation. We are proposing, as part of the net improvement requirement of the official plan policy further on in my study, that we retain a shoreline rehabilitation specialist and that we would have that plan prepared and implemented forthwith upon approval of this plan. Next slide, please, Emily. We would like to point out the non-existing environmental constraints. I am hearing for the first time that staff are asking for further studies. However, there are no identified areas of deer wintering habitat, no wetlands, no significant wetlands, no moose aquatic feeding areas, and no significant fish habitat adjacent to this property. That's not to say that we are not willing to studies, but there has been no identified environmental constraints.
Ms. Proyer,
Next
you
slide.
are approaching 7
I'm
minutes.
trying,
so
sir.
yeah, if you can get your
Yep.
conclusions, please.
Sure, and we've got the septic system capacity assessment done, as we've noted. Next slide, please, Emily. We've done the stormwater management and erosion study with a summary of findings. Next slide, please. With respect to the comments from the 3 Mile Lake Association, I would just like to point out that the causation study identifies that any impacts to 3 Mile Lake are not caused from land use activities, but other factors that are not presented by the buildings. Next slide, please, Emily.
All right, Ms. Poirier, I think, please get to your conclusion.
I'm trying, sir, but every time I have to say next slide, it takes me at least 5 seconds.
Well, just if you
All right,
maybe you can just
let's go to the
verbally
end,
wrap
please,
it up
Emily.
for us.
Yeah.
Just
So,
verbally wrap it up. You
yep,
don't need to
yep.
wait for the slides.
okay, so we have, after having discussions with staff, are willing to do some net improvements to address the policy requirements of both the district and Township of Muskoka Lake official plan. We would like to propose removing the new decking, which would bring the setback of the structures to where they existed in 1984 on a non-complying, legal non-compliant basis. And as I mentioned earlier, we're also prepared to undertake a robust shoreline rehabilitation program by a qualified professional and have that installed. We would like to thank you for your time this morning, ask you for your consideration, your comments. My client has been cooperative in giving the township everything they need and is willing to do so in the future. So your direction and your comments would be most appreciated. Thank you kindly.
Thank you very much. Do we have anybody who's wishing to speak in favor of this application? Nobody? Do we have anybody wishing to speak against this application? Is there anybody in the meeting room? Not seeing anyone? All right. Committee, it's a fairly complicated application. What questions do we have? Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you, through you. So I'm certainly very satisfied with the staff recommendations on this particular file. And I guess my question would be to staff, as this plays out and we were to follow the recommendations in front of us as committee, what is the use currently for the property? Will the property be able to be used in its current form until this takes its 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, whatever shape it ultimately takes? What is the proposed use of the property now?
Ms. Crowder?
Through you, Chair Bosenworth, through to Councillor Zavitz. The property is operated as a seasonal resort, and would be permitted to continue to do so with the exception of the as-built buildings and structures. Those are currently subject to orders and are not permitted occupancy at this time. So those particular buildings are not permitted to be used. We do have bylaw here with us today if there's more questions on specific use of those buildings, but the property, except those, still has 8 other housekeeping units on the property.
Committee, any other questions? Councillor Edwards.
Yes, it's built without building permits, and there was only one building there originally. Can we get them removed if it's actually necessary? They were built without building permits, were they not?
Ms. Crowder? What would be the process that ultimately ended up in that?
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Edwards. So these buildings and the attached sun decks were constructed without permits, and orders have been placed through the building department and the bylaw enforcement department. The applicant's agent, the applicant and their agent have chosen to apply for relief through planning, which they are absolutely permitted to do. Now, through these applications, should this committee and subsequently council choose to approve the applications, the official plan amendment portion of it still needs to go to district council to further be approved. But if they were to gain all the approvals, the structures would be permitted to remain, but would need to then get building permits, occupancy, etc. If this committee and the subsequent councils decided to deny the applications, leaving the conversation of appeals aside, they would be required to remove the buildings and structures.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Mayor Kelly.
Thank you, and through you. I just was looking for some clarification on timing. Yeah, there we are. Ms. Poirier, how long have you been working with the applicant? Did you say 2.5 years?
Ms. Poirier?
Yes, sir. Since 2022.
And when were those 2 buildings built? The east and the west?
You know what, I'm not sure, but I think about a year and a half prior to that. And then the orders to comply were put on by bylaw enforcement. And it's my understanding through you, Mr. Chair, to the mayor, that the matters that are before provincial court have been dealt with and dispensed with.
And just one quick follow-up. You'd mentioned in a rather sort of a general way that one of those structures was built near or close to or in approximation to where there had been a previous building. Is it sort of, are you arguing, are you claiming that it's sort of grandfathered because it's built in replacement on the same location, or is it just kind of a near miss?
Ms. Poirier?
No, sir, through you, Mr. Chair, to the mayor, I am not suggesting that it be grandfathered. What I'm suggesting is that the property is stable from a planning perspective, in the sense that there has been a building in that location since prior to 1984. And we are offering to remove the deck such that that setback remains, and that any impacts that would have been caused by being closer to the water have been mitigated over the past several decades. We've also consulted a professional engineer with respect to removing the buildings, and he's provided 3 options and has suggested that there could be some environmental impacts as well from actually removing the buildings. So at some point in time, I would like to have some discussions with you and staff respecting those 3 options, should in fact these applications not be approved.
So in fact, I'm gathering from that at some point in time, your client has decided to touch the subject of what if we have to take these things down? Is that why you were looking at moving them or removing them?
Ms. Poirier?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, to the mayor. We're always prepared to make recommendations to our clients and anticipate recommendation at this time from staff, and we have had some discussions with the district and they haven't had a chance yet to review our suggestions for net improvement. So of course, we have to always look at what may be the options for our clients and what may be the options to make sure that we fulfill the objectives of your official plans with respect to the environment, and understand that, what impacts could occur if buildings have to be come down or moved or stay.
Thank you.
I see Mr. Snyder has come on. Oh, he's gone. All right.
No, he's there.
Oh, he's still there. Yes, he's moved. Stay still, will you? Do you have some comments?
Yes, thank you. Through you. To the question of the construction of the buildings, I can't confirm, pardon me, I can't confirm the date that construction commenced or was completed, but I can confirm that the building code orders were issued June 14th, 2022, if that's helpful to the
Okay, thank you.
committee.
Committee, any further questions on this? Councillor Edwards?
Yes, the planner said there were 3 options for the buildings. I'd like to know what those options were.
Ms. Poirier, could you repeat those 3 options?
Through you, Mr. Chair, certainly. The first option was, and the professional engineer, Mr. Steve Dahl, who was involved in the project pretty much since day one, and I think he's had several discussions with Mr. Snyder, was to move the buildings. And because they're slab on grade and because of the way they're built, moving them was not an option without destroying them. Secondly, we asked, or Mr. Dahl provided some recommendations and some impact statements with respect to removing the buildings altogether and having to remove the slab on grade and the impacts of dust and disturbance to the areas that might result in some impacts to the environment there. And then the third option was to permit the buildings to be there with the decks removed, putting in enhanced vegetation along the shoreline, removing the sand beach, which my client is prepared to do, and let the buildings remain. So those are the 3 options. Let them remain. Can they be moved? Can they be taken down?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Committee, let me read the resolution, then we can get into further discussion on this. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Councillor Kent.
I was late in getting my hand up, Chair Bosworth. I just had one other question for an option for Ms. Poirier. Would you consider, and this was just one of the things that was, you noted that there's 2 buildings. There was one there. What about an option of taking away one of them to as well as the deck to conform with what was there in a prior back, I guess you said in the 70s or whatever the year was you said it was.
Ms. Poirier?
I can hear you. You're cutting in and out a
The
bit.
question was there any consideration to just removing one building?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't think the issue is how many buildings get removed. It's the issue of if you remove any of the buildings at all, and you have to break up the building itself and the concrete. And I'm not sure if we were able to get the letter from Mr. Dahl into staff, but it lines it out in detail what the impacts would be to removing any building that's slab engraved that's been built to that. Now, I'm not a building inspector. Perhaps Mr. Snyder has some further comments to explain to you what slab on grade and how well constructed these buildings are, and that taking them down would have some impacts as well.
All right, thank you very much for that. I'm going to read the resolution so that we can move on with some more fulsome discussion on this. Moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Get ready, it's a long one. Be it resolved that public and agency comments be received with respect to application OPA 58/24 and ZBA 2024/24, 590379 Ontario Inc., along with the following items. That the submitted survey be revised to the satisfaction of the township to confirm the lot area of the subject's lands and the area of the subject's land that is zoned waterfront commercial resort WC1, and that the revised survey be stamped and signed by an OLS and submitted with the surveyor's real property report, that the submitted zoning sketch be revised to the satisfaction of the township to include all existing buildings and structures on the subject land, as well as the intended conversion of building number 11 as labeled in table 4 of this report from staff quarters to housekeeping unit. That floor plans prepared by a qualified professional be submitted to the satisfaction of the township with gross floor area calculations for each building on the subject land. That a satisfactory sloped stability assessment relative to the as-built west and east housekeeping units and attached sun decks be prepared by a qualified geotechnical engineer and submitted to the satisfaction of the township, including a review of the foundations relative to the angle of repose to the toe of the slope and sediment load/erosion towards 3 Mile Lake. That it be confirmed to the satisfaction of the township that effluent flow is below 5,000 liters per day, or that a hydrological assessment be prepared by a qualified engineer and submitted to the satisfaction of the township, and that a satisfactory scope environmental impact study be prepared by a qualified environmental professional and submitted to the satisfaction of the township, which evaluates potential impacts to the fish and fish habitat relative to the as-built west and east housekeeping units, including any consideration or recommendations of the aforementioned slope stability assessment, and that staff be directed to undertake a review of the comments and items noted above with a view to providing recommendation to Planning Committee on the applications. In short, a lot of extensive list of items that we need some more information on. This is a deferral. Committee, do we have any discussion on this? Mayor Kelly.
Thank you. And through you, I just need some clarification on how extensive or how far our response can be right now. I realize that everyone has a statutory right to apply for these kind of remedies. Do we have a statutory obligation to let them go forward if, quite frankly, they just look like it's going to wind up taking in a tremendous amount of time and energy? And there's so many. I guess we do. I mean, I guess we do. I'll just leave it at that. What's the both ends of the scale? Yeah, go ahead, do it. Take whatever time and energy out of our planner's life to try to make this work. Or do we have the prerogative at this point in time just to say, this ain't gonna go?
Director Huff.
Thank you, Chair. So to the Planning Committee, I would say that with any planning application during a public meeting, committee has the option, several options. So they can agree with the resolution presented by staff. There can be a recommendation that denies an application outright. There could also just be a resolution that directs the staff not to come back, and the application would essentially run out of its timeline. I think those are the options that committee has for any application at this stage of the process. Thank you.
Ms. Crowder, and then Councillor Nishikawa.
Through you, Chair, and if I may just add to Director Huff, the items that we've requested are really so that staff can be in a strong position to defend our recommendation. Now, in resort properties, what's really critical in evaluating them is gross floor area of buildings relative to the acreage. And then, of course, in this situation, because of the reduced setback, there's concerns around slopes and fish habitat and those types of things. So, you know, our recommendation here is so that we can have a recommendation put forward that we can really defend. That being said, if this committee does not see itself supporting the application, you could make that decision today, which I think Director Huff has outlined.
Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you. My question was along the same line through you to, I'm just going to say to you, I would like to deal with the application today. And I'm not sure how to do that.
What do you mean by deal with the application today?
Like, I don't want to defer.
I see.
And so therefore, and I need a little bit of moment to explain why. There's a lot of cost involved to this applicant. And asking for more things, I will not be approving this application the way it is. And in fact, I find it must be new owners or whatever, but there's just many concerns that I have about this application. And while I like some of the things that staff are doing to get more information about what's going on the property. So for instance, the sewage levels, all of those types of things. Again, I can't support what they're doing at the shore and what they've done. And even, I don't even buy the idea, because I'm in construction, I totally understand what gross negligence is when it comes to just demolishing something and thinking that we're going to destroy the watershed. Like, that would be, the person that's doing that shouldn't be doing the job. So I don't understand some of the reasons why we wouldn't, why we'd have to keep these buildings remained. So I want to see it all gone. And I just also don't want the applicant to have to put the costs of more and more studies, because they're not going to sell me on any ideas.
Thank you very much. Councillor Burry.
Thank you. And through you, I have a question for Director Huff. In deferring this application, will you and your staff be in a better position to defend a very aggressive declining of this application? Does it put the township in a better place? I mean, this is offensive for me, pouring concrete that close. And people that know me know I love concrete. But pouring that close to the shoreline and building without permits is infuriating. And at some point, we're going to have to start to set an example for people that are doing things. But for this particular application, are we in a better position as a corporation, as a township, with your staff having a little more time to be able to dot the i's and cross the t's, so deferring, as opposed to Councillor Nishikawa's proposal that we just deny it outright today?
Director Huff.
Thank you, through the chair. It's a good question. So I think from a planning perspective, thinking about what that OLT meeting would look like, I think staff would probably be in a more solid position if we had all the information and was able to make a decision based on the information that we needed and a fulsome analysis relative to the zoning and the official plan, as well as the district official plan.
Should your recommendation be to deny?
Correct.
Committee, I don't.
Councillor Roberts had his hand up.
Councillor Roberts, thank you. And then, Councillor Roberts.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Chair. I've just,
The other
I
councillor.
would like more information on giving the staff more time, given the thoughts around the room. But I'd also like to get a legal opinion of possible decisions that we make.
Director Huff, do you have any comments on that? Why we might need a legal opinion? Or what kind of a legal opinion we might get?
Sorry, just a moment. Thank you, Chair. So I think in the course of our day-to-day, where we have concerns about direction or interpretation, we do certainly seek legal advice. In terms of providing legal advice to the committee prior to making a decision, I could certainly take direction to do so. That would be something that would be enclosed. It would be unusual, I would think. I don't know if the CAO, who has some experience in this matter.
CEO Pink, would you have any comments on this?
Thank you, and good morning, committee. I guess I would look to committee member Roberts for some clarification on what legal opinion you would be seeking. My understanding has always been the municipality is not liable for policy decisions or planning applications such as this. The recourse to an applicant or any member of the community engaged would be to appeal said decision. But if Councillor Roberts could clarify if there's a particular aspect that requires a legal clarification, we'd be happy to respond or look into that.
Councillor Roberts, clarification?
Thank you, Chair. Given what the CAO has just reminded me of, no, we'll just leave it in staff's capable hands.
Councillor Mazin.
Thank you. I am currently sitting with the position that I support staff's current recommendation. It sounds to me like having more information will help all parties, the township and the applicant, to better understand how to move forward on this particular property. So Marie, the applicant has laid out a few options, and I suspect they'll come back with some iteration of that. So I currently support the approach. Thank you.
Committee, Councillor Edwards.
I'm really torn with this one because it seems like it's build and they shall forgive. And that they obviously knew they were wrong. Any contractor coming in should know that. And that I don't think this should go through, but I will let them spend the money to do all the studies and that. But at this point, I can't support it in that. I don't care what the results come back. They're too close to the lake. They knew that when they built. As I said, they put the concrete there, knowing that, and that. If I was them, I would get some contractors, see if they can move the buildings. And that, plus it's over lot coverage as well, is it not? And that.
Ms. Crowder, is it over lot coverage?
Through you, Chair. No, it is not over lot coverage. The exact number, I don't know, but I have an approximate number. We're around 4.something% lot coverage on this particular property right now, where 10% is permitted.
Wasn't there something on so many square feet per?
Through you,
Ms.
Chair.
Crowder?
Yes, Councillor Edwards. I believe you might be referring to the gross floor area per acre
That's right, yeah.
measurement. Yes, this property is over that.
That's what I thought it was over,
Okay.
over the
Fair
limit. Thank you.
That's correct.
Councillor Kent.
Thank you. I just wanted to reiterate, I agree with Councilor Nishikawa on this one, and I can't support this proposal. I don't see any reason for us to invest any more resources in it. I think it should be denied, and if they want to deal with this down the road, that's the agent and client, issue. So from my perspective, I don't think we should continue this game of more and more expense being put into their court. When I suspect that, I don't know how council's going to vote on this, but that's my view for now, which is I support Councilor Nishikawa and Edwards. Thank you.
Committee, do we have any, no side discussions, please, here. Do we have any more discussion on this? Because I will try to wrap it up and then call a question. I think, Councillor Nishikawa.
My first question was a question that I don't feel I got answered, and probably because it wasn't as clear. But essentially, I would like an opinion, and I'm suggesting that it might be from Mr. Pink, but an opinion on what it looks like when the municipality just keeps asking for more and more and more, when our intentions may be to turn it down. And what that looks like when you get, well, why did you keep going and going? And so that's what was my question. What does that look like, or what does it appear from a municipality?
Director Pink?
Thank you. It's a good question and an interesting discussion and debate. And I guess, I don't know if this is helpful, but you know, I think the municipality council has a right to request what information it needs to make an informed decision on the application. I think that's what staff's put in front of you, is that to make a recommendation to committee and for committee and ultimately council to make a decision. This is the information they need. On the other hand, I think it's a struggle, and we balance with you know, if the committee and council's intent is to not be in support of the application in spite of that information, you know, is it fair, is it prudent to request them to incur that time and that expense if ultimately the intention or your position is that you would not support the application? So I think that's sort of the question that I think committee needs to discuss and debate.
Councillor Mazin?
Thank you. And through you, perhaps just a quick supplemental on that. I guess on the other side of the conversation, would the applicant also, after hearing today's discussion, have the opportunity to withdraw their application?
Director Pink?
Thank you. I think the applicant could withdraw at any time, and it may be a fair question to the applicant as to, you know, upon hearing this discussion, what their preference is with respect to next steps. That may inform your decision-making somewhat, but they could certainly withdraw the application and or appeal, I believe, after 90 days of a lack of decision. Those are their rights before them.
So perhaps we could, as a supplemental, ask the applicant's agent.
Ms. Poirier, do you have some comments on that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the councillor, no, I have no comments on that. We've not considered that. We've always just continued to work with the township and give staff everything they've asked for. So I've never contemplated, nor have I counseled my client on any options with respect to withdrawing.
Councillor Nishikawa?
Thank you. I wanted to state that the reports that we're requesting will not change my mind about the buildings that are built on the shore. And I just want to be very clear that us asking for those other reports, while it would be great for the operation of the resort, it's still not going to change my view on the build on the shore, because we're not asking them to remove it. If we were asking in the resolution to consider removing the buildings, that would be different, but that's not what I understand. That we're still trying to find a way to keep those buildings there, and I can't pass that. So, sorry, could I supplemental?
Yeah.
Could the discussion be opened up of whether we should, well, I'd like to hear from the rest of council if really deferral is the right thing to do. Thank you.
Let me just try this. I think we heard from Director Huff that we are asking for more information and we have to anticipate what it would be like sitting in front of OLT. And I'm going to summarize and ask if I've got it right. If we denied it now, we would not have any information we would have less than perfect information to defend that position in front of OLT. If we continue with the information, we don't know and get the information, we don't know what staff is going to recommend. Because they can't make the decision yet. So if we don't have that information, does it weaken our position if we're in front of OLT? And I'm not sure who to turn to. I'll turn to you, Director Huff.
Thank you, Chair. I think staff would be more comfortable with the information in defending their decision. If I could say it like that.
No. Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you, and through you. So I guess to look at Ms. Crowder, were all of those conditions in the recommendation checked off? So in fact, they weren't on our piece of paper in a hypothetical world. My sense is you'd still be coming back to us with a recommendation with the word deny on it. Can you speak to that, or is that outside the realm of?
Through you,
Ms. Crowder.
through you, Chair, to Councillor Zavitz. I think at this time, without the information that we've requested, we are not in a position to say whether we would recommend denial or approval. Hence why we've put the recommendation forward we have.
Councillor Mazin.
Thank you, and through you. Again, I think staff has made it clear and they've put some thought into the recommendation that we have before us for probably good sound reason. I've heard a few today. I did hear from the applicant's agent that there was 3 directions or options. One, that they could move the buildings, which they deemed that was not viable on their terms. They could remove the buildings completely, which would, I think, mean this application would not be before us anymore. Or the third, they could leave the buildings there, which is where they are currently today, with some improvements. If those are the 3 options, and staff is going to be able to come back based upon ongoing discussions, I think if I was the applicant and I was listening today, it's very clear that there's some real concerns around this table. I'm comfortable with leaving it with staff to come back with their recommendations for us.
Mayor Kelly. And then Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, and through you, and I think it might have been Councillor Mazan who raised a question a minute ago that opened my eyes. There's actually a 4th option, and the 4th option is withdrawing the application, which case it falls back on the township to deal with some sort of an enforcement cleanup action, which may be the least happy of the possible results. So as much as I find this activity to be among the most egregious that we've had to look at here around this table, we also have to bear in mind, we have to keep an open mind until all the information is in, and that information might in fact be useful to us down the road, either in a challenge that's mounted by the applicant or in fact by ourselves if the applicant withdraws and we have to go in and do whatever we have to do to remedy the situation that brought this to our attention in the first place. So I'm going to go back and, I mean, this one is as you can probably tell, this one is a surprisingly irritating thing. The transgressions are many, they're egregious. And I struggle to understand how it can be made right. But I think we're obligated to keep an open mind until a resolution is called, and I'm willing to support the deferral just to get the information so that we have better information when we make that decision. Thank you.
Councillor Edwards.
I think as the mayor said, this is really pushing the limits. I think in cases like this in the future, if we have to have other reports, we hire the company to do it and charge the applicant. So they don't have somebody just come in and say, oh yeah, it's fine. And that's one thing. Secondly, if the report comes back that staff are supporting this after all the information and we turn it down, which it sounds like we might, then we have to hire somebody to fight our staff. That's a question to Mr. Pink.
That's the question? I thought you were just sort of stating the obvious.
Like if staff support it.
Yeah.
And we did turn it down, as some counselors said, then we have to hire somebody to go against our staff. And this is one of the things we have to do. And that's why I was saying we should have a team of experts that we hire to do it, so we know it's above board. And the applicant pays for those reports.
Director
rather
Huff.
than them getting somebody else.
Director Huff, do we have the option for us to select the professionals to do some of these studies rather than the applicant? What are the options for us? I mean, I think one of the options is we do a peer review. So I'll let you answer that.
Thank you, Chair. So yes, certainly we can choose the consultants to do the peer reviews of the reports that are submitted. Generally, the applicant's responsible for choosing who they work with to provide the reports that are necessary for their applications. I will say, though, that, you know, the one thing that is happening is that the district in Muskoka is proposing or has endorsed terms of reference for each of these studies to make sure that these studies are done in a consistent fashion and with the same amount of details. So that's not something that's been implemented here, but something that we could look at. So that would help ensure that the reports that are provided in support of applications are done in a manner that, you know, we are agreeable to.
Good. Useful to know. Committee. I think we're ready to call the question on this. Any more comments? Seeing none, all those in favor for deferral? Any opposed? Okay, that is carried. We have another one associated with it? All right. Committee, we're going to take a break, come back at 25:02. Thank you very much. that I bring back, or I'll jump ahead to 15A, which was the water quality impact at Brandy Lake, because we needed a resolution. We had some direction from committee, and we could just get that over so that Mr. Trimble and his friends don't have to listen to the rest of our planning applications. So is everybody all right with that? Let me read the resolution. Moved by Councillor McIntyre, seconded by Councillor Zavitz. Be it resolved that staff investigate potential amendments to the site alteration, tree conservation and/or zoning bylaws with a view to providing additional protections to environmentally sensitive features such as streams and wetlands, and report back to Planning Committee at a future meeting. Any comments or questions on that? Very well. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. Good. Next item is brought to us by the birthday girl. It is Caitlin's birthday today, so we can all wish her a happy birthday.
Thank you.
And she's going to talk to us about Plan 2025-38 ZBA 5424 on 1154 Clear Lake Road.
Thank you very much, Chair Bosenworth, and good morning, everyone. The next application to be heard is zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 54/24 in the name of Vidali. The subject lands are known municipally as 1154 Clear Lake Road, and the property fronts onto Clear Lake. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 217 of the agenda package. It's also on the screen in front of you. The subject property consists of a waterfront parcel and a backlot parcel, which are separated by the original road allowance associated with Clear Lake Road. The purpose and effect of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment application is to permit the construction of a dwelling addition on the waterfront parcel and a new sleeping cabin on the backlot parcel. The zoning bylaw amendment would deem the waterfront and back parcel lots 1 for planning purposes. The proposed development also requires several other exemptions from the township zoning bylaw for lot coverage to permit the development of a new sleeping cabin on an undersized lot and from various setbacks. Next slide, please. Notice of this public meeting was, under the Planning Act, was circulated 27 days in advance of the meeting, and 9 comments have been received to date. 5 letters of support were received from area property owners and were all circulated to committee prior to today's meeting. Comments were also received from Nick Snyder, the township's chief building official, Tim Sopko, the township's manager of public works, Douglas Holland, the township's fire prevention officer, and Emily Ramler, planner for the district of Muskoka. The township's operational services department and the building division have raised concerns regarding the proposed setback of the sleeping cabin to the road allowance and the replacement of the existing septic system on the backlot parcel. These comments were all circulated to committee prior to today's meeting, and I can read any comments in full at the requested committee. Next slide, please. Staff have prepared a detailed planning report for committee's consideration. Staff have recommended that zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 54/24 Badali be deferred to provide the applicant an opportunity to satisfactorily address all concerns raised by the operational services department and building divisions. I have no comments at this time, but I can answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have the applicant's agent? Looks like we do.
You're the applicant.
Oh, you are the applicant. Oh,
I'm
okay.
the owner.
Thank you very
I don't
much.
have an agent. It's a very modest property on a modest lake. So no, I don't have an agent.
Fair enough. Would you like, would you have any comments you'd like to say? Because you do have 5 minutes if you'd like.
Thank you.
You start with your name and address and then go ahead.
Yes, name is Catherine Michelle Badali. Address is 403 St. Clements Avenue, Toronto, Ontario, M5N1M2. I am an owner with my husband of the property at 1154 Clear Lake Road, which has been in my family since my parents purchased the lot for my grandparents about 60 66 or 67 years ago, and I have family who's been on that lake for 100 years. 1925 was the extended family. And so I just want to say thank you very much. I've really appreciated working with Caitlin and with Kaylee, and, you know, basically look forward to working hopefully with building and operations to come to something that will meet everybody's needs and concerns.
Right, thank you very much. Do we have anybody wishing to speak either for or against this application? None whatsoever. Committee, do we have any questions for the applicant or Ms. Walker? Sure. All right. Very well. Let me read the resolution. Moved by Councillor Mazin, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. Be it resolved that a decision on the zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 54/24 Badali be deferred to provide the applicant an opportunity to satisfactorily address all concerns raised by the Operational Services Department and the Building Division. Is there any discussion on this? Councillor Muskoka.
I'm not sure that others know the area very well, but almost all of the septics are split. So along that particular section of Clear Lake Road, it is, and we've approved like 2 of them within the last 10 years that I'm aware of for sure, but even sooner than that. I can't really comment on the bunkie, but it is the norm of what has been presented, of what has occurred on that road. So I am in support of the application. And I'm just not sure if there could be more information brought forward about the number of properties that actually have their septics run under the road. And we just did another one recently, so I'm just saying.
Ms. Walker, do you have any comments on that? And is that something you could bring forward when it comes back?
Through you, we could definitely look into that and check with our Public Works Department as well to see how many existing properties along that road have septics that are split by Clear Lake Road. Yeah, we can get that information.
All right. Any other comments or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. All right, we now have Mr. Sharp is going to talk to us, report on climate change adaptation and implementation plan for our township.
Well, thank you, Chair Bosenworth, and again, good morning, members of committee. I have prepared a detailed report that provides an overview of a climate change adaptation implementation plan prepared for the township. The plan includes several adaptation actions for the township, including implementing floodplain mapping, optimizing the use of road salt, support for residential wood ash recycling, and coordinating emergency response procedures, among other matters. The plan provides a roadmap for implementation of the actions and will be used to guide and prioritize operating and capital budgets. I would note that staff are already making good progress with respect to the completion of actions such as the implementation of the floodplain mapping through the township's ongoing comprehensive zoning bylaw update. I would also note that there are no dedicated financial or staffing resources assigned to the climate change portfolio at the township. In this regard, a recommendation of the plan is that each area municipality has a designated climate change coordinator. In the absence of such a position, implementation of climate change initiatives will be an ongoing challenge. And should committee choose to pursue such resources, a resolution can be passed today directing staff to explore those options. I have no further comments at this time, and I would be happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
So committee, we have a couple of things before us. It's just questions about the report and then an option to consider a resolution to add staff. Is that correct, Mr. Sharp?
Thank you, and through you, Chair. With respect to the latter, I think what the resolution would state would be that simply that staff be directed to explore the options to increase the staff capacity to deal with the specific climate change component. So thank you.
Explore versus approve. Okay, very much. Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you. And through you, I wonder if we know, what do the other townships in our group of 6 do in terms of a dedicated climate person at this point in time?
Mr. Sharp, I think some of that information was in the report, but.
Thank you. And through you, I can say that we've certainly been in contact with the town of Gravenhurst and the town of Bracebridge. I know they are both interested in exploring their options in increasing their staff complement to deal with climate change initiatives, recognizing that in 2021, the area municipalities declared a climate emergency, and they recognize the importance of that. I know that the town of Huntsville, and I believe the township of Lake of Bays had a staff person to deal with climate change initiatives. So I would perhaps look to Ms. Huff if she has further information with respect to some of the details. Thank you.
Director Huff.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, I think Mr. Sharp aptly covered, I think, the existing coverages in the local area municipalities. I'll just add that the discussions with Gravenhurst and Bracebridge have considered a number of different options. So whether or not there's a sharing of a position, a pilot program, or something to that effect. So I know that they're also investigating options.
Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you. Supplemental. So to that end, if we were to consider a sharing versus dedicated in our own township, I could see where, if we have our own person, then of course we would be contemplating, equipment and activities and very specific to us. And I just wonder if anyone has comments on what that looks like vis-a-vis a sharing of a person who would then, how would you get specific information about, our township, their town, blah, 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 trucks, et cetera. To me, I like the idea of that person up there, but at some point in time, we're going to have our person. So that's a question.
I think the suggestion was that that's exactly what staff would be doing. They would go back and explore these kinds of options, but I'll let Director Huff or Mr. Sharp. I think you had your hand up. Maybe you can answer that.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. It's a great question. I'm not sure I have the answers for you now. I think there may be some synergies if a staff person were to be shared. With respect to, I think some of the other area municipalities would be dealing with many of the same considerations that we would. But I think at this point, it's too early to say. I think what we would be looking for, as I've indicated, is if you're interested in going down that road, those considerations would be explored, and we would bring a report back to you with a recommendation or thoughts for you to consider.
Mayor Kelly, Councillor Mazin, Councillor McIntyre.
I'll do the right thing. Councillor Mazin.
Was she? All right. Well, I'm the chair and I call it.
I'll go.
You
Thank
go.
you. Thank you. And through you, I think exploring these opportunities is a great idea. I would actually maybe not limit myself to the 6 District of Muskoka municipalities. For instance, the Sandwood Township, we have a lot in common. They have the top half of Lake Joe and the top half of Lake Rosso. So we share water. Same with Georgian Bay. We have very much in common because we dump a lot of water into Georgian Bay through the Moon River. So there may be more than just a financial relationship here. We may actually benefit from some mutual environmental concerns if we find the partners to work with.
Councillor Mazin.
Thank you, and through. That's a really good idea. Sorry. This is why, this is why I'm glad you went first.
Good thing you went first, yeah.
I was just simply thinking, no, not at all. That was I just like how staff have suggested, if you have the opportunity to go and explore, come back to us. And it sounds like this would be a decision that we'd be making at budget time regardless. Is that correct? Okay, thank you.
Councillor McIntyre.
In my opinion, as the township, we hold ourselves up as putting environmental concerns first. And in my opinion, it can only help us if we have a person as part of a committee who we have designated as somebody who is the person for environmental concerns. I think it's a really important step for the township.
Mr. Sharp, I have a question on I think it's our action item 5. Review, develop policies to encourage the incorporation of low impact development features and green infrastructures. How does that affect the work that we're doing on the comprehensive zoning bylaw? And I have one specific item in mind as an example, which is a potential to not allow hardscaped driveways and yards as an example of helping to mitigate the impacts of climate change.
Well, I think it's a great, and through your chair, I think it's a great question. I think the official plan contains, I believe, some policies. They're more of an aspirational nature, and I believe they're more orientated toward the urban center areas with respect to the notion of green infrastructure. Not so much with respect to, asphalt driveways, but as you're aware, given your position as a member on the steering committee related to the comprehensive zoning bylaw update review process, driveways have been discussed at some length, and I think it would be best to deal with those considerations through the site alteration bylaw versus through the zoning process. But we can certainly have more detailed conversations on the April 29th, which we're having a special meeting to deal with the comprehensive zoning bylaw.
So I guess the simple question was, is that an example of an item that we'd be doing under item 5?
I think so. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Any other questions from committee? So do I get a sense that we should be thinking about this a resolution to support further investigation by staff on how we address this? And do we have that?
No, I'm trying to come up with something. It wasn't, you didn't have a resolution in the report around this, you just.
No, we didn't. All right. All right, we could, what was, Chair Mazin.
Thank you.
Yeah, if I keep.
Just while we're waiting for that
Yeah.
resolution to be drafted, I did note in the actual report, I think maybe because Huntsville and Lake Bays was slightly ahead, but some of their action items actually related directly to some of the infrastructure. And I note on here that number 2 talks to that. Will this plan create reasonable actions or considerations as we evolve our approach to infrastructure moving forward as well? Is that it? Let me give this example. I was thinking yesterday we had 2 culverts go. Those are expensive. I didn't appreciate how expensive a culvert is. And so the size of a culvert and the level of water going through, I'm stepping outside of what my comfort is, but as I was reading this report, I realized the magnitude, quite honestly, the considerations that need to be made. So maybe it's just a comment. I'm not looking for you in the planning world to tell me, but I think these are all going to be things that are going to be factors as we move forward. And, it's real money. So it's finding that balance, I guess, somehow. It's a comment. I'm giving us time. I'll stop talking.
No, you can talk. But anybody else like to talk?
Strange, right?
No, I understand that. Just another minute or two. Councillor Zavitz.
No, thank you through you while we're waiting. Just for clarity for me, I know that Director Huff came back to us with the climate change report. And I'm just wondering the interplay of this
Good question.
and that. Perhaps you handed it off to someone to manage, or is this part of our adaptation of that bigger? Because there's many pieces to that, right? That we had spoken of a couple of months ago. And I just wondered if that is distilled down now to what this is.
Director Huff, adaptation versus climate change.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So maybe I'll start and perhaps Mr. Sharp can jump in as well. So my understanding is this project started a number of years ago and has been in various staff's hands. And so when it came to the point where we were looking to finalize the climate mitigation plan, which is really about things that we can do to prevent and mitigate the impacts of climate change, as opposed to adaptation. So those are the things that we can do to, well, it sounds redundant, but adapt to the changing climate around us. And so there's some nuances to that, but just at that point in time, I was available and started in on the climate mitigation plan. The implementation plan had already been in the works for some time, and Mr. Sharp had been heavily involved in that project. And so certainly the intent is for the implementation plan to take the adaptation and mitigation measures and move them forward and provide some priorities and timelines attached to some of those measures. But that was a project that Mr. Sharp had been involved in. So that's why you see him here. There is some back and forth within the department of who's doing what right now on this project, just because it's so large. Mr. Sharp, I didn't know if you had anything additional to add.
No, and actually, I thought you did a great job of answering the question. I think in my mind, what it speaks to, yeah, you returned the favor for me, so thank you. But, I think what your comments really speak to is the difficulty that staff are having to manage these two fairly large projects, the mitigation component and the adaptation component. And I think it would be helpful to have a dedicated staff person in order to, not only just for the continuity and the benefit that brings to a project, but just making sure that we're seeing it through as well. Thank you.
I might, thank you through
Yes.
you. I think it's very important I'm not saying there's confusion, but for our people outside of who vote for us, that, this is it's a unified, singular, overarching approach. It's not in silos or pockets, or somebody's buying, trucks, somebody's buying solar this, somebody's still using coal over there. I mean, I think it's important that we are seen as a unified, or this approach is seen as a unified. And I just wonder if that's inherent in our words to the public.
Mr. Sharp, and then Councillor Burry.
Through you, Chair. Certainly, I think it's important to point out that within the district and the area municipalities have taken a unified approach. So it's not that TML or Muskoka Lakes is doing one thing and Gravenhurst is doing another. Of course, they all have their specific actions that relate specifically to their municipalities, but generally speaking, there is a unified approach and we're all in this together.
Councillor Burry.
Thank you, and through you, and while I would tend to support the need for a human in this kind of place, I'm going to try and raise this up a level again. We as a township are going to need to understand that every head count is expensive. There are things we're doing that we should be looking at doing in other ways, and we probably haven't done as good a job of that as we might. The emergence of tools like artificial intelligence are going to help us to do some things that are currently being done by human beings differently. I think of things like booking arena time and ballpark time can easily be done with these kinds of tools. And then we can redeploy the human capital into much higher level needs for the township.
Such as
So I'm not talking about eliminating people or jobs. I'm talking about redefining how the work gets done and giving people much more meaningful work to do. And this would be a truly meaningful job in the environmental space. But we're going to have to look at where we free up the human capital, because throwing bodies at problems over the long term is not going to be productive. And we are at a terrific time for us to be able to take a look back. There's not many organizations I've worked in where jobs haven't been reclassified in 50 years. And we haven't. I mean, Councillor Bosemorth, Chair Bosemorth, I know you come from a background where it wasn't an option that you actually cut a percentage of human capital every year and then had to re-justify it. I think we're hearing in the press some of the leading technology companies are. I'm going to get to a point, but I'm doing my best Mayor Kelly impersonation here.
I do have the resolutions ready.
So, but we're starting to see, companies like Shopify say, if you want to increase headcount, show me why it can't be done with tools other than adding people. And I do think that we can enhance the overall experience for our constituents and for the members of the Township of Muskoka Lakes by taking a hard look at what we do and where we do it before just throwing bodies.
Thank you, Councillor Burry.
Yeah.
Director Pink, or CEO Pink.
Thank you. Just further to that, I would note the draft resolution is certainly just for council's consideration at budget time and draft budget. There's certainly no commitment, but I would echo those comments. You may recall that in the budget, council has included lean training, which staff are in the midst of just starting to undertake. And the goal and the hope of that is to find those efficiencies so that we can take on additional responsibilities without always just adding headcount. So that will be part of the report coming back at budget time in a business case should a position be warranted or not.
Perfect. Thank you very much. We have two resolutions. One is to accept the report that Mr. Sharp gave us. So let me read that one first. Moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Zavitz. Be it resolved that the Climate Change Adaptation Implementation Plan attached as Appendix 1 to report DSES 2025-013 be adopted. Any discussions? All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you. And the one that we have decided that we would like to address with respect to the resources is moved by Councillor Burry, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved that staff investigate options to support climate change and environmental initiatives and responsibilities, including an additional staff position as noted in report DSES 2025-013 for consideration as part of the draft 2026 budget. Any discussion? Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you, through you. I guess to Chair or Committee Member Burry's point, perhaps it should also include references to, in addition to considering a staff position, that there are the AI, there are other alternatives to be considered. Because for example, I probably wouldn't be supportive of a staff piece just for that as well. I think that we should be a little more fulsome, just so we remember it in 4 months when it comes back to us, that it wasn't just a staff consideration, it was also other training slash alternatives to handle that, incorporating that into our mandate.
Mayor Kelly.
Thank you, and through you, and just in response to Councillor Zavet's, I think that really all we're doing is asking to put together a group and give some ideas about how we move it forward. If they come back with or without discussion around other alternatives like AI or whatever, that would be a great time to raise that, I think. Why didn't we think about this, or have we thought about it? I think this is really just to establish a group to get together and figure out how do we tackle this, and if we can share that resource with some other group and defray the cost until it gets moving, all the better.
All right, I've read the resolution. All those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. All right. Director Huff is going to talk to us about the District of Muskoka official plan amendment with respect to resort policies.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair. So this report is really just a highlight of some happenings at the District of Muskoka. So they are currently undertaking their update to their official plan, as you may know. One component of that update is specifically focused on their resort policies. This effort has been going on for some time, and it has come to a point now where they have a draft of the OPA. So it's draft OPA 62. It's available on their website, on their Engage Muskoka page, and it is out for public consultation right now. So I did put the notice of the open houses. This is the statutory open houses as well as the statutory public meeting that has been scheduled in support of these policies. That the actual open houses happened last night and yesterday, and then the public meeting is happening next June 24th. So I think that's next Thursday at 1 p.m. So just a little, sorry, yes, April 24th. Thank you. Way ahead of myself here. Just as some background, so the district hired Meridian Consulting, whom this township also uses for some of their planning work, to undertake this review. Meridian completed an extensive background report, lots of public consultation, and really focused on 7 key themes and made some policy recommendations around that. So the report that I've done up for you today does provide as one of the appendices a summary of what those 7 key themes are, as well as the recommendations, and those recommendations have made it into OPA 62. Staff are proposing to submit formal comments to the district on this policy, just to show that the township's interest and priorities relative to this are aligned with the district's policies in this case. And we're happy to see that, you know, generally these policies are very similar to those that are within our own official plan in the Manette Resort official plan amendment. So that's great. It seems like we are very closely aligned. 2 additional comments I just wanted to note, and that I propose to convey to the district as well, is that they don't make explicit reference to the need to direct development in a manner that would avoid natural hazards. So there's lots of policies in their official plan that deals with this, but nothing specifically in this section. So that would direct, you know, resorts away from locating in floodplains and erosion areas, which I think is pretty reasonable, but it'd be nice to spell it out. The other thing is that we're noticing we're getting a lot of interest in non-waterfront rural resorts. And so this policy is really focused on waterfront resorts. And so we've mentioned this to the district. They do recognize that really this policy wasn't intended originally to do that, but they are aware that there might be a bit of a gap. And so we're going to just bring that to light as well in our official comments. Beyond that, I think I'll leave it there. Again, I'll mention that staff did attend the open houses yesterday. They weren't really well attended, to be honest. There was a few consultants on the resort end of things, and there was 3 of us that attended the public component of the open house. So I think that was surprising given the amount of public engagement that has happened earlier, but maybe that's a reflection of how much engagement has happened already, and maybe the policies reflect what they've been hearing. So with that, I'll leave it there. Happy to answer any questions.
Did I hear you say then that you were the only public attendance? Was there any public attending at all?
There was 2 members of the public other than myself.
All right. Mayor Kelly.
Thank you, and through you, and great report. The attendance may have been off a little if you were telling everybody it was in June. I have a quick question. I don't really think I understand the relationship that has to exist between the township official plan and the district official plan, and only on 2 issues. You raised 2 issues in, I think this is your work, this report. There are 2 places here where they actually call out the resort village of Minette as the not how not to do, where they're calling out that the proposed resort policy at district is perhaps more aggressive than is the case in the resort village of Minette. One of them being the features that define a resort hotel, and they're saying basically we're going to call out more specific activities that are resort-like, unlike the resort village of the OP of the resort village. What's it called? Minette Resort Village, which has, I think they call it passive activities of hiking and wandering or something. Do we have to true up what we have in order to be as strong, for instance, as they come up with? If somehow they come up with a more conservative view on something, or what's the latitude we have to be less demanding on something like that? Sorry, if you're looking for it, it's under 4B. You're under 4B.
Yep.
And there was one other reference, and I didn't highlight it when I read it, and I can't find it. But there's one other spot in here where I thought the suggestion was, we're going to take the resort village of Minette, we're going to actually enhance it. We're going to bolster it. Does that put any obligation on us? Do we not have to have the same or similar obligations and conditions in our OP as the new one will reflect a district?
Director Huss.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. So I'll maybe start answering that generally and then get into the specifics of Minette. So generally speaking, the way the provincial legislation is set for planning in Ontario is that obviously the PPS comes first, but then district official plans are created, and the local municipality's official plan needs to conform to the district official plan. So if there is language in the district official plan that doesn't conform with what we have today in our official plan, there would be potentially a requirement for us to do an amendment to align it more closely with the district. That being said, however, the Minette Village was subject to planning approvals already and was approved by the district already. And so I think that language specifically in Minette would be moot because it's already gone through that planning approval process. But any other new resorts that require an OPA would have to reflect the direction found in the district official plan.
Great answer. Thank you.
Committee, any other questions or comments? All right. I have a resolution moved by Councillor Kent, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved that township comments on District of Muskoka OPA 62- resorts policies as contained within report DSES-2025-016 be forwarded to the District of Muskoka. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right. Director Huff, do we have any OLT status updates or staff delegated approvals? None? Okay. One more resolution then, folks, and that is moved by Councillor McIntyre, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Be it resolved that the Planning Committee meeting adjourn at 11:17 and that the next regular Planning Committee meeting be held on Thursday, May the 15th, 2025 at 9 a.m. via an electronically and in-person hybrid format from the Council Chambers Municipal Offices in beautiful downtown Port Carling. All those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you very much.